Okay. Let's take a look at the movements. These are the kind of joint movements we have to know, because these are very common in medical sciences, in rehabilitation, engineering, and also in ergonomics. These describes the joint movements, and sometimes it's very confusing. Okay, I estimated there to be about 20% errors, mistakes in many of the literature, even in textbooks in ergonomics and in medicine, in physiology, anatomy textbooks. Okay, and it's also difficult to come up with a good reasoning, logic, or principles. Because if you come up with some principles, there will always be cases where this principle does not apply. Okay? But this is, let's first take a look at the common principles, the common ones. The first type of joint movement is flexion extension. Flex means bend. You bend something. Okay? So normally we would say, okay, if you decrease the angle between two bones, it's flexion. If you increase the angles, it's extension. Okay? So it works like this. Now, at the elbow here, I'm going to bend it like that. So you are decreasing the angle, right? You are decreasing angle. So you said you are flex. You're doing a flexion. So suppose I'm, okay, reducing the angle between the hand and the forearm. Okay, so that's the wrist. Okay, this part is wrist. You are doing a wrist flexion. Okay, you are doing a elbow flexion. Okay, so that's flexion, and the extension is just the opposite. Okay, so I'm now extending my arm at the elbow. I'm flexing my arm at the elbow. Extension, flexion at the elbow. Okay? For no, for all the joints. This is a common definition. So with this, for this definition, how about shoulder? If I'm doing this, you would think that it's flexion, right? What is this movement at the shoulder? Looks like you are decreasing this angle, right? You're making this angle smaller, so it's flexion, but it's not. We'll look at it later. But for now, this definition is so intuitive. Decreasing the angle is flexion. Increasing the angle is extension. Okay, how about knee? Now, what I'm doing? Flexion at the knee, right? But how about here? What am I doing? Flexion or extension? If you consider this and that, this trunk and this angle, I'm making it smaller, right? So it's flexion. Okay, we'll see whether this principle applies for all of the joints. Let's see. Okay, so there's a figure here. This is the elbow flexion, no problem. This is the elbow extension because it's increasing that angle, okay? Movement. If you are thinking flexion and extension as movement, okay, this is all right, okay? Thumb, flexion, right? Thumb, the other way around, thumb, extension, right? Is still okay, right? How about here? If you think that if this arm is swinging this way, yes. If you think that the angle is here, it's flexion. But if you think the angle is this, you are actually increasing the angle, right? If the arm was here, and then now you move it up, so you are increasing this angle. However, if you think about this angle, then you are reducing this angle, right? With this arm being moved up. So but definitely this is shoulder flexion. If you check all the textbook, this is shoulder flexion. So that's for now. That's focus on this angle. Maybe this angle is the correct one. Okay, now this motion, this movement, yeah, this angle is increasing, right? This angle is increasing. So if you think about this, let me put a... So you are considering the angle between this and this. So the angle between this and this, right? So you're actually increasing this angle. And here you are decreasing this angle. So that seems all right. That seems all right. Okay? But there's another way to look at this. Another way to look at this is let's look at this. This is an anatomical position. Anatomical position. Remember last week? Okay. Suppose this guy is now doing this. The palm is facing forward, facing forward. That's the anatomical position. Okay. Another definition for flexion is this: movement for any person, for any body part of any person at this anatomical position. If you move your body parts anteriorly, forward, in front of the, what's this plane? What is this plane? Coronal plane. Imagine there's a coronal plane, posteriorly, anteriorly. If you move anteriorly, it's flexion. Using this principle for the shoulder, flexion. For the elbow, flexion. At the wrist, for the hand, remember, it's anatomical position, not this, this. Flexion. Okay? For the leg, if I'm kicking like this, yes, flexion. Flexion. For the ankle, flexion. Knee, the only violation is knee. Knee is very interesting, flexion. Okay, it doesn't show knee here, but let me tell you, the only violation is knee. Okay, knee. This is knee flexion. Okay. How about neck? What is this? Flexion. Extension. Okay, for the shoulder, flexion, still flexion. See? It's moving anteriorly. Flexion. But commonly we say, oh, this is you're extending your arm. No. This is extension. It's opposite. It may be opposite to what you think. Right? Flexion. Extension. Because you move anteriorly, still anteriorly. Flexion. How about the trunk? Flexion. Extension. Okay? Okay, let's now go to abduction, adduction. Abduct is some kind of action, trying to move something away. If you look up the dictionary, it's indeed moving away. So if I say somebody in this room was abducted by some gangsters this morning, and then he cannot come to the class, what does that mean? Abducted, kidnapped, taken away. So abduction. So moving away. Moving away from where? Actually, if you look at, it says from the median plane. Remember? The sagittal plane? The sagittal plane is this plane that separate into right and left. So if I show you this movement, this is shoulder abduction, because you're moving away from the median, the sagittal plane. Shoulder abduction, okay? How about hip? This is hip abduction, moving away from the sagittal plane, median plane or sagittal plane. Okay, let's look at this figure. Now, very interesting. How about this? Yeah, shoulder abduction, okay? This is vertical view, shoulder abduction, because it's moving away. Okay, and this is shoulder horizontal abduction. Yeah. If your shoulder was like this and you move away from the sagittal plane, so it's a shoulder abduction horizontally. Then, how about this? Why is this wrist abduction? Come back to anatomical position. This. Look at my palm. Facing forward. Now I'm just moving my hand away from median plane, away from the sagittal plane, right? So this is this the same as this? Wrist abduction. Abduction, okay? Right? So now if I tell you, if I ask you, what's this? Still wrist abduction. You have to come back to this anatomical position to think about it. Oh. So no matter where you are, it's still wrist abduction. Okay? How about this? Wrist adduction. Adduction meaning getting close. Okay, in the market there are a lot of ergonomic keyboard. Okay, they claim that it's better. Now look at this. The main theory is this: there is no wrist abduction. There is no wrist adduction when you are doing typing task. It's straight. Okay? With the traditional keyboard, okay, this is exaggerating, but this. Okay, look at this. There's a wrist adduction. Adduction. How about this? What is this? Moving posteriorly, wrist extension. This is wrist extension. Okay? So if you use your keyboard this way, you know, there usually in your on your keyboard there are two at the bottom side. There are two small leg. You can flip it up, and then you can make it like that, and you are actually harming your wrist. Okay, if you use a mouse which is very big. For a small hand, you are doing actually also this. Like this. So the idea is to make these keys at an angle so that your hand doesn't have to make that angle. Okay? If it's a straight keyboard, that's your hand would have to create an angle for it. Not only this view, but also vertical view. Okay, so okay, and there's something like this. This is wrong because the wrist is flexed when you are using this mouse. This is also wrong, okay, because you are sitting too low on a very high desk. So you have to use your mouse this way. And you have a large flexion. So if you always come back to the anatomical position and think about it, okay, it's easier. Flexion means moving anteriorly. Moving anteriorly to the front. Extension is just the opposite. Abduction means moving away from the median plane. Then you will have a very nice principle. No, I never see this. I never seen this. It's exaggerating. It doesn't have to be like this to get injured. Okay, we're talking about years of bad postures, not just a couple months. A couple months won't get you anywhere. It's a cumulative trauma disorders. Many people now, they're holding their pad or phone, okay, and eventually you feel not only the wrist sore, right? The muscle feel bad, but also some of the fingers, because my phone is kind of heavy with just the weight of the phone plus the case plus something, the film or whatever. It becomes too heavy to me, and also there is not enough friction. My case, they claim to be very strong. Okay, you can just throw away your phone, and when it dropped, it won't break. It's a protective case. It's a nice one. But after I buy it and I use it for a while, I notice there's a big problem. It's slippery. Very slippery. So whenever I hold it, I do it this way. I actually support it with my little finger. How many of you do that? I notice in the MRT, in the subway, many people are doing probably at least 50%. Because it's by holding it this way, it's not enough. You have to use your little finger to hold it. And many people today, clinically, they got something wrong here. We are not talking about just 6 months. We're talking about years of use. They have to see a doctor. But we do have some bad design. To me, I noticed that bad design immediately, but some of the designers, they don't. This is the phone that I use. Okay. Everything is rounded. They claim this to be, pretty. Round. With a curve. This actually makes you very difficult to hold it firmly. It's very easy to drop your phone. So everybody has to buy a case. That's actually what happened. With the iPhone 2, until iPhone, I don't remember, probably even to 6, it's not this. It's like iPhone 12. They're coming back. Okay, this is okay. Yeah, see, it's squared. Squared. This is actually a better design in terms of holding. You will not drop it so often because it cuts into your skin, soft tissue. But it's not too bad. With the rounder one, it's very difficult to hold it. I think they designed this simply for a change, to make you impressive, because the older iPhones are squared. Then they make it to round one, and then all others follow. Okay, Samsung, whatever. And then now, iPhone 12, they return. They have a return to back to the future. So everybody will follow again. There is a famous iPhone design, which is this curvature. See that? And this curvature design is a very considered to be artistically, okay, considered to be the most beautiful curvature. Okay? And it's patented. It's a patent. And Samsung followed and actually paid for, 1 billion NT dollars like that. They got sued, and then Apple won the case. So even that angle can be a good patent to win you some money. Incredible big money. This, and they are still using it today. Okay. If you are interested, I'm not promoting for iPhone 12, okay? Don't make me wrong. But I'm glad that they come back to this. See? square. It's easier to hold. Look at this. They return. Maybe they know it's becoming heavier, so you have to do that. Because they have now more cameras. More and more cameras. Larger display. It's getting heavier. So there's more contact surface in theory, right? If it's a round one, you only contact with it partially. But with a flat one at the side, you can more contact surface. That means more friction. So easier to hold it. So design is sometimes you need to consider the trade-off. There's a trade-off between something extremely beautiful and something very useful. Very useful. Okay? If you are from the Department of Industrial Design or Artistic Design, Visual Design, they are, most of their life, they are trained to design some shape, some form towards beauty. They cannot tolerate anything that is ugly. Sometimes they sacrifice utility just to pursue beauty. But if you are from Department of Industrial Engineering, you are exactly the opposite. What is our performance index if we are talking about any system? What is considered optimal? We only consider lower cost, higher productivity, efficiency, right? Who cares about beauty? We never learn anything about beauty. So that's industrial engineering. Okay? Okay. Basically, the two major movements are flexion extension and abduction adduction. The next one is circumduction. Circumduction, okay, is a combination, a sequence of flexion, abduction, extension, and adduction. And it occurs at the thumb. Okay, it's not shown here, but I can show it to you. If you do this, or this, so fingers can do a lot of circumduction. So if you break it down, it's actually extension. Okay, now, what's this? You come back to here. So it's extension. And then like that. So the four in a sequence, it goes like that. It becomes circumduction, okay? Rotation, pure rotation is defined to be around the long axis, pure rotation. So, for example, my trunk. This is rotation. Okay, my neck, my head, rotation. Okay? How about this? What is this? Yeah, this is some kind of rotation, of course, along this axis. But this axis, see? The rotation is around this axis, but this axis is not a human long axis. So, this, what's this? Shoulder, no, neck. Abduction, you're right. Abduction. When I move back, it's adduction. Okay? Somebody can do this. They move this part horizontally. I cannot. There's some dance. Can anybody do it? A little bit, right? So like moving this head that way. There is no definition for this.
They usually look like their shoulder, not their...
Oh, that's the trick. You know how to do it?
No.
No. That's probably the trick. Not they don't move this, but they move this. So they make you look like you're moving this head. So that's rotation. Rotation is around the long axis. And there's another pair, which is a pronation and supination. Okay. I have shown it to you. The pronation is like this. Okay, this. Sorry, this here. There's a mistake. So you need to correct it, okay? You need to correct it. This is actually B, not A. And this is A, not B. So up the top one here is pronation. Pronation. Okay? The bottom one here is the supination. Supination. So pronation is this. You are rotating like that. Pronation. Inward. Inward. Supination is outward. Okay? When you are turning the cap, this cap, the cap of your bottle, if I ask you to describe this movement, how many movements involved? Actually, it's quite complicated. Turning it loose, open it, or turning it tight, closing it. How many movements? There are some wrist flexion, abduction, adduction, all the, right? A lot of. And this is what you have to do as an ergonomist. Describing something. If you are publishing a paper, this is, you cannot just say, turn it, bend it. It's not clear. You have to describe the motion step by step. Okay? That is why we have to learn this. Because in medical science, that's the way they require. Everything is accurate, precise. Okay? So, see, if you are using a screwdriver to loosen a screw, has anybody never done this at all? using a screwdriver to loosen or to tighten something? Hopefully you've done something. You got the experience. Otherwise, it's difficult to describe it. So, this movement, see, I'm loosen it, making that screwdriver counterclockwise. Then you are losing it, loosening it, counterclockwise. So this movement, pronation. You're right, pronation, pronation. And you are continuously doing a lot of pronation until it's loose. Okay? And sometimes we have to describe a scenario like this. Okay, we attach something to the forearm. To the forearm. We put a tape, put an adhesive tape on the forearm here, about 2 inch from the wrist. But this is not clear. Which side? Here or this? And close to the wrist, this is okay. 2 inch from the wrist joint. But which side? So you have to say anterior side. Go back to the anatomical position like this. This is anterior. If you put it here, it's a posterior. Side about 2 inch at the center of the forearm. So you describe it this way, okay? What else I want to say? That's about it, okay? Now let's take a look at the, okay,